All right, hey, so this is Dick from On the Palm of Dick and Jane. So today we're going to talk a little bit about what we've been doing here on the property since March when the COVID thing hit, and we started we got thrusted into the idea of homesteading, which was going to happen in 3 years, but the COVID thing accelerated it, and so we're here now full time. And this is what we're doing. So the first thing we wanted to do was try to become self-sufficient, or at least work towards that goal. And so we decided that, well, we obviously needed a garden to get our homestead kind of kicked off. So we have started various gardening projects, and we'll go over those today. So one of the first things we want to do is talk about our different zones. So you got zones 0, like is in the house. And this is what we're doing right here. So we can grow lettuce. This is where we're starting some starts that we eventually put outside, although this is winter, or well, it's actually fall. Some of these will probably be going into the hoop house, and we'll talk about later. But this is one zone. Another area where we do some inside growing, and that's basically for overwintering things like peppers and tomatoes to try to keep them growing until the next spring season. Is in our master bath, where we've basically turned our bathtub into a greenhouse. So we have a grow light. We don't use the bathtub, we obviously use the shower, and it's separate from the bathtub. And so we've decided that we could use that bathtub to hold some larger potted plants like peppers that we're gonna overwinter, and tomatoes that we're overwintering. And if you wanna see that, you can look in our last video where Jane covers that, and she shows that. So let's go outside. This is Hannah. She's our rescue. Got her from the Richmond SPCA. Just love her to death. She loves us. She loves the hug. Anyway, so I want to talk about Zone 1. Zone 1 is the zone closest to the house. Zone 0 was in the house. And out here in Zone 1, we've got some raised beds that we put together. We got 2 on one side of the yard and 2 on the other, although there should be another one over there next to it. We kind of dug it out and got it ready, but then we changed our focus to work more on some rows out in I guess we call that Zone 2. That's out in the field. And so here's where we grow a lot of greens. At the beginning of the year, we had tomatoes and peppers and things like that, even corn in that one long bed over there. The corn was a bit of a letdown. We didn't really know what we were doing to grow corn, but we got a few ears off of it. But the tomatoes did really good, the peppers did really well, and we had some beans as well out here. So we built these beds, built them out of lumber that we mill here on the property, and so we've got a couple different groups going. This is over here is a solid oak, and over here these were made out of pine. So obviously the pine probably aren't going to last as long, but they are thicker than the oak. And then we used flitches from the sawmill to kind of like put around the border, just maybe trying to make it easier to keep the weeds at bay. And so that was one of the things that we thought, well, what can we do? Can we do with some of the sawmill byproducts? We'll talk about maybe some more of that later. So this is our Zone 1, and Zone 1 also includes 2x2 beds on each side, and I guess that's a 2x8 bed that houses some blueberry bushes for us. You've probably seen those in other videos. Blueberry bushes on this side didn't do quite as well, and so for some reason, but the ones on the other side seem to thrive quite well. So we're trying to figure out, maybe what went wrong there. But we had marigolds all up in front, and we just tore them down to those last bits there. So this area up here has been reasonably successful. The beans were a little slow to start for us, but we understand now that they're heavy feeders, and we weren't feeding them heavily. And so now that we know that, our second crop of beans that were out in Zone 1 were much more successful. We got a freezer full of those pole beans. All right, let's go take a look at some building projects we've had. So this was like, I think, one of our first little building projects besides the raised bed. we knew we needed a place to manage some compost. So we built a 3-bin compost work area, and we built that basically all out of scrap wood. So there was some leftover landscaping timbers that were on the property that we had salvaged a long time ago and put them in the barn. So we pulled those out, and we used those landscaping timbers as basically posts for this. And then we used sawmill waste, the flitches. Those basically the slab wood that comes off the log with the bark and all that on it. So we used those for siding. And then we also had some wood where there was some sawmill goofs where the blade took a dive on the sawmill, things like this. And that's hickory. And so we went ahead and used those, cut those down and fit in there. So that's how we built our compost management area. And we've gotten already a couple of loads of compost out of it. Right now it looks like a mess because a bunch of leaves, obviously, from fall have fallen on it, but we'll be cleaning that up shortly. And then right behind you over here is a little potter shed that we put together. Again, that's all wood milled from the, except for what's in contact with the ground. That's wood milled from the property and made out of rough sawn lumber and some cheap roofing panels from Home Depot. And we built these lattice things as well. So all of that is pretty much from wood milled on the property. So Jane uses this for potting up her plants when she's not doing it on the deck. All right, let's go take a look at another experiment. So these two strange looking mounds are Hugo Mounds, or I guess Hugo and Mound is maybe synonymous, means the same thing. But anyway, it's I think it's a German way of doing some gardening. And so what you do is, the idea is you dig like a trench. You fill the trench with logs, big rotting logs. Then you cover those up, and then over time those logs break down and they act like sponges. So you got a trench, first of all, catches water. The logs act like a sponge. That breaks down. You get all this organic material that starts to feed these mounds. So we're testing that theory. The first year or so, you might not get good results, but we'll see how that goes. So we decided to set aside a couple of experiments for that. Since we had the excavator, or have an excavator, it was a really quick job to do. So we could build these all day long if we wanted to. But so we're going to experiment with this and see how this goes. The idea is there's going to be some perennial plants on here like asparagus and some other plants. Ultimately, we are going to fence in this area, and on the back end of this fence, this is the north side. On the back end here, we'll probably have the goal is to have some grapevines. We'll set up a trellis for that system, and then it'll probably come along the back side of here and work a little ways down the field. So while we were in here messing around building these things, we decided that we'll go ahead and cut in a couple of rows to experiment with. And so that one row right there, we planted some potatoes in there and got a little small potato harvest. And then Jane planted some okra and some kohlrabi. So we set up a trellis system for the beans, and they quickly shaded out the okra. and this was supposed to be a fall crop. So those are things you live and learn, right? And so those beans grew up, and they kind of shaded out the okra, so the okra really didn't have a chance. They're only about that tall. And so again, we have these covered. We cover things up at night anyway, just to kind of defend it from the critters. And so far it seems to work. Another thing we do too is we leave a radio on generally at night down here. So we're hoping that might also be a deterrent. And so then we had some beans. We put up the trellis for some beans, and they were very, very successful. We got, I don't know how many pounds of beans in the freezer. And then since we were done with that, we went ahead and put in a cover crop of mustard. That's what I was looking for, a cover crop of mustard. And so The idea of the mustard is going to act as a fumigant, which is hopefully is going to kill some bad, critters in the soil, maybe. And we had a problem with cutworms, and so I don't know if that'll help with the cutworms, but it's supposed to help with things like nematodes, stuff like that. So, so that's our first cover crop, and we'll probably put another cover crop or something like that on some beans or something like that to fix some nitrogen in the soil in early spring. And then so here we had a crop of turnips. So we said, well, we got one row, let's make another row. So we set up another row. Now we were running these rows east-west. And then after obviously we set up this, we realized, you know what, we made a mistake because these things can shade out the things on the north side of the property. So we're going to reorient these rows running north-south. And so we went ahead and cut in 5 more rows right here. They're about, I think about 20 foot long. And we loaded those up with a bunch of brassicas, so some cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, and then the cutworms just basically devastated it. And so now we've got some onions that we've started in here, and we managed to have like maybe 4 or 5 broccolis or something like that over there that we've saved. And then we have some beets on the end that we managed to save, probably about half of those before they got destroyed by the cutworms. But so those are things you're learning about. We're learning about our property, like what kind of pests we have and what we have to deal with. And so this first year of gardening is basically, this is a crawling phase for us. And so ultimately we will go ahead and continue these 5 rows all the way out to where that row is, and they're going to end up being about 40 foot because we're going to, or 35 foot because we're going to go further that way as well towards the hoop house. So we're going to end up with 5 rows. Now we could do more rows, but we got a shade problem. The trees in the background cause significant shade in the afternoon, and so we've found that the plants on closer to on this side, on the, I guess, what is that, east side, yeah, east side of the field, get more sunlight, and they grow taller as a result, and faster. So we have to figure out what works best where within this field, and sooner or later we are going to have to take down some of those trees to open up some more light on this field. Take them down or thin them out or something. We'll have to see how that goes. Hate to take down trees, but at some point we need to make these a little more productive. Or we can use the other side of this field for maybe some more shade tolerant plants, especially in the summer, because it gets very hot here and very humid. So we intend to extend these rows from about where that one is all the way down to just about where near the end of that black area right there. So that should be about, I want to say it's about 35 feet. We may come more forward this way, and maybe we'll put some dwarf like fruit trees in pots or something, either there or on this end of the property, on the outside of where the fence will be. Come on, girl, you're pulling on me. All right, so then our other building project this summer was our hoop house. Now the hoop house is, we'd watched a lot of different designs on YouTube on how these things are built, and we decided right off the bat we wanted to elevate ours, and so we basically elevated it 3 feet off the ground. And so we got the 1/2-inch hardware cloth, and we essentially built 2 parallel fences. They're 21 foot long, 3 foot high, and then we capped that, and then we put a board to run across, a ridge board that ran across, and we can look at that in a minute. That we could anchor the cattle panels on. So there's 5 cattle panels here. So this is 21 foot by 10 foot, and it's probably a good 8 foot high. We drove our tractor under it, so which I can't even get into my barn. So it's a little taller than my barn doors. So obviously covered that with greenhouse plastic. And then we decided, hey, you know, that was a lot of fun with working with the flitches. We had more flitches from milling we had done, and we thought it might be kind of fun to close these off with flitches. So we decided to use some flitches to kind of give it a, you know, a rustic look. And that's what we're going for here, rustic, not polished. And so all the wood above ground is milled again on the property from our mill. So then we decided, hey, this would be great. I was going to use a lot of this area over here as a part of my wood lot. And there was some logs parked over here during the summer. And I decided sunlight's a premium. We need it for gardening. So I went ahead and we got plenty of other forest and things like that we can use for a wood lot. And so I decided to not use this for a wood lot, but make this also a part of the garden. So at that point, we decided to extend the garden. It was only going to be about 80 feet. Now I think it's going to be somewhere in 120 foot from one corner of the fence to the corner of the fence down here. And then what we have right here is a 40-foot plot. And it's 40 foot by 21 foot because it's basically the width of the greenhouse. And we should be able to at least get 5 more rows in here. So that'll give us 10 in-ground rows. So we got 10 in-ground rows, and we got the raised beds up front. And another thing that we'll probably do is we're going to build some low tables, and we're going to probably have a field down there where the septic field is, right? We're going to set up some plants on stands and kind of extend that out as another growing area eventually. So what we've done here is we've gotten this ready. We're getting this ready for a new pot next spring. So we decided to strip the grass off the top of it and put some mustard, Kodiak mustard, which is supposed to be a biofumigant and kill off them nematodes. And then we'll come back and probably plant some kind of field peas or something in here to fix some nitrogen in the soil in the spring. So this is also a work in progress. So, and ultimately we'll probably put some sort of raised bed along the side here. And we still got some more room over there because this side actually gets sun a little bit further over even later in the afternoon. So my woodlot operation, as you can see, my equipment over there and some wood and the firewood stuff, it's gonna get moved, just shifted just a little bit further that way, where we're gonna build eventually a sawmill shelter, which is kind of a running joke because we should have already had that started. But COVID came along and changed our plans, if you will. So as you can see, we got our fencing material over there ready to go. So that's one of the projects we need to get done between now and the spring. So let's take a walk on the inside of the hoop house and see what we did there. On the outside, first I made a door. Door's made of oak. All the rest of the framing here is pine. So anything that comes in contact or buried in the ground is pressure treated. That's the only wood we bought. So we got wood that runs across the bottom. All that wood that runs down on the bottom there is not come in contact with the ground. It's just part of a frame. Basically, gave us a place to attach the fencing, make that a little more rigid. Right now we have a little tent built in here when it gets cold. We're going to be covering the tomatoes to try to add a second zone. Basically, this is a microclimate, and then if you put a tent around these tomatoes, it creates like a second level microclimate, and hopefully it'll make the tomatoes last even longer. So these were suckers that we just started. I don't know, it doesn't seem like it was that long ago, at the beginning of, I guess, early fall. And they have already grown and they're already putting out tomatoes. So that's kind of fun. This is one of our stunted okras that we pulled out of the field. So, never grew okra, not a fan of okra, but Jane is, so. And now, we were able to rescue Hannah, why are you going up there? And you don't want to be there. So she's like, she's licking the water off of it. All right, so anyway, we built these racks in here to put potted plants, and the idea is everything that's in here is going to be in pots or in containers. And so these are the brassicas we rescued from what we had planted out in the field, transplanted them into pots and brought them inside, and they seem to be thriving quite well in here. These are tomatoes that were left over from the deck, and I don't think any of these we dug up out of the front yard. I think these came from the deck, and so they're starting to produce a second set as well. So we'll see what we get off of them. And maybe we'll get a few more tomatoes. And then these guys over here, see how long the idea is, you know, see how long we can keep things going. Well, we've never done this before. So when we built this, you can see where we attached wood to kind of frame out the end caps, and we ran a header board across from fence to fence, and then we built down and covered that with wood, and on the top part is obviously plastic. And we got a little window framed in here, which we still got to work on being able to automate the opening and closing of that. We wrap the ends of the cattle panels, as a lot of folks do on YouTube. We wrap those in pipe insulation, zip ties, so all of that's wrapped. So anywhere that might make a rough edge for the plastic, we went ahead and covered that. Now there's one thing here too. It's like there's a certain way you have to do the cattle panels. You want the I guess in this case they're vertical. The vertical wire, if you will, needs to be on the outside, and that helps create these little channels for water to run off. And then these don't really come in contact. And then we with the plastic, just this wire here does. You know, the vertical wires. All right, so then we zip tied all of these together. So I put a double zip tie on every one of them. I'm hoping these zip ties are going to be strong enough. So far, we've gone through what, 3 tropical storms, and since we put this thing up, and this thing does not move. I mean, it is quite rigid. I mean, you don't even hear it flapping hardly, and this is quite sturdy for what it is. So then we attached, a lot of folks were stapling, and we started stapling. You can see where we started stapling. We initially kind of tacked them in with staples, and then I came back and instead of using staples, I used Adel clamps, and I screwed the Adel clamps to hold down the wire. So we've got these boards running across the top. Then we got a header board on the outside that's tacked into these all along, and then that provides a pretty sturdy foundation for our cattle panels. And let's see. So then we decided we wanted to put a ridge beam in. So we went ahead and put a ridge beam in. I didn't have any 21-foot boards, so obviously I just kind of, you know, sistered them up together there. And then so this will come around and wrap around the tomato plants whenever we think it's going to get cold. So again, all these plants are, we wanted to see how things went before we got gung-ho and started planting in here a big crop for the winter. So this is our first winter. We're going to see how things go. And then I decided that we needed a fan, and boy do we need a fan in here. So I got a fan, little cheap fan from Home Depot, and that came on a stand, and I went ahead and attached that to the ridge beam that runs across there, and then that keeps it pretty cool. We got an extension cord that runs through here, or runs down the side and out across the road to the barn where there's electricity. So yeah, I don't know if we'll eventually try to run something a little more permanent out here, but for now that'll work, just for this fan. We do have some a proper greenhouse louver and fan kit that we had in another greenhouse, but that greenhouse got old and kind of decrepit, so we tore that down. But the fan system in that still works, so we're building a new greenhouse, an actual greenhouse that's gonna for seed starts and things like that, probably next year. After, it's got to come after the chicken coop. First, we got to put a lean-to up where the old greenhouse was, so we'll have some, you know, covered storage next to the garage. That's where the greenhouse was. It was a lean-to greenhouse, and so we got to put that. We got to get that rebuilt, and then I guess then we're going to build a chicken coop, and then we can work on the greenhouse. And I got a nod from Jane, so that seems like a logical order. I was wondering if she was going to fight me on the greenhouse first before the chickens.
Yeah.
I think the idea is to get some chickens in the spring.
Yeah.
And be ready for those. And we're not getting chickens until we have a nice greenhouse built. So this is what we've done here, and this is actually quite nice. These brassicas are loving it in here. It looks like. Even now, especially now, you know, when we started these brassicas, I don't know, what was it, October? Or no, it was probably late September, right?
I think so.
Yeah. What do you think you are, a bird? Come on down, girl. Anyway, so I guess she wants out of here. So, oh, and we got the wood chips. All the wood chips came from our new chipper that we bought this year as well. So we got kind of harassed a little bit on YouTube, people watching us burning our flitches and things like that, and they said, man, don't do that, get a chipper. So, and I agreed, I didn't really like burning all that stuff, so we got a chipper, and that chipper's been very nice. It's all of these wood chips in here come from our chipper, and these chips right here are pine chips that were from the original. There might be a little bit of oak mixed in it. But it's mostly pine. You know, instead of doing that, we cut them down, we chipped them. So and that's been nice. So we've got all the wood chip material we need. We got a sawmill, so we can make all the wood we need. And it doesn't have to be great, you know, farm wood, right? So you can take a log that might otherwise not be that great and cut it up into some 2x4s and use it on a farm project, or some, you know, 2x6s and 2x8s and turn them into planter boxes. And who cares if they rot? You just get more. Whoops, drop it. She's hilarious.
Did they drop your leash?
I dropped the leash. Anyway, so we're gonna pack this with plants eventually. But right now, we're in the crawling phase. So here we go, kid. So I think, you know, other than doing some maintenance on our woods, that's pretty much what's been going on down here. This is what we do for fun now that we're retired. This is what we intended to do for fun when we were planning to retire 3 years from now. But thanks to COVID-19, we decided, well, we might as well retire 3 years early. So we went ahead and did that. And so now this is what we do full time. And so welcome to the homesteading life, I guess. And we'll see what we can do about expanding that into some animals. Get the garden, continue to get the garden going. We had some great luck with some your typical garden plants, your zucchinis, your yellow squash, your cucumbers. We got a lot of stuff like that canned, and tomatoes. We ended up canning some tomatoes, and we got lots and lots of jars of pickles, stuff like that. So we also ramped up our canning equipment, things like that this year. So hopefully next year we won't be focusing on as many purchases as we had this year, because this gardening stuff was starting to seem kind of expensive. So we're hoping that we were lucky, at least with the hoop house, most of the wood we were able to get for free off the property. We'll probably end up doing the same for the greenhouse. and some other lean-tos and things that we need to build. I got a stack of wood over there already milled up for the frame of the sawmill shelter. So we'll get to that eventually. But here we are. We've landed here in the Middle Peninsula of Virginia. It's a relatively mild climate. We get 4 seasons, and we're hoping that we can grow in 4 seasons. That's going to be the trick, because we know nothing about that. And so if it looks like we're doing something silly on our channel, just yeah, feel free to comment. Just be nice. Anyway, that's what we're doing here on the pond with Dick and Jane. And thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Have a good one.